Hey guys, this is Billy from AdultCello.com. So what I demonstrated at the start of the video was a practice habit that I think really should be avoided. And stay tuned because I'm going to go ahead and offer 2 alternative practice tips. If you think this is a habit you have, go ahead, try these tips out for a week, and then in the comment section below, let me know if they helped you. Okay, so what exactly is the habit I was demonstrating? It's a situation in which you're playing a piece of music, and one section of the music, the notes feel pretty comfortable, and so you're just kind of almost at full tempo, and then you get to a certain string crossing, a certain shift, and it's very uncomfortable so far, and so the whole tempo slows down while you sort of navigate this complicated section, and then the tempo picks right back up again. It's almost like someone took a big dial on the tempo and just turned it down for a couple notes and then cranked it right back up. Here's the problem with that. What I think is happening is you're sort of creating what I would call like a psychological scar in the music. And it's training you to slow down, feel maybe a little physical tension, get a little nerved up. Okay, here's the hard part. I gotta slow down. I really wanna make sure I hit the shift. I wanna make sure I get this string crossing really clean. And even if after practicing in this manner, you eventually get the shift or whatever it is to full speed, that scar remains. And so if you're playing in front of a teacher, you're playing, a concert in front of people, with enough pressure, I think that scar can kind of get triggered. And because psychologically you're thinking, oh, this is the section that I slow down for. This is the hard part. So I got to be extra careful here. That's usually the kind of thinking that leads to tension and then kind of either botching the shifts slightly during the performance or, just kind of tightening up and not playing the way you could be playing. Okay, so where does this practice habit come from? I think for adult learners, it's the fact that we're trying to be careful. We don't want to miss whatever we're doing. And we also don't want to be bored out of our minds. So if there's one shift that really makes us slow down, to play the whole passage at that tempo seems boring and basically a waste of time because the notes before the shift are comfortable. I also think there's a little bit of a 2 birds with 1 stone kind of mentality going on, which, you've got this, let's call it the A section, where the notes are pretty comfortable already. So, okay, this is almost full speed. Let me see if I can do this at full speed. That's the challenge. Then we get to the shift that's uncomfortable. All right, pump the brakes. I need to go at like half speed. And so the mentality is I don't want to waste my time practicing no matter what. So if I can already play it fast, let me see if I can get it a little bit faster right across the board. And what you end up with is this, kind of strange musical tempo that's fluctuating according to how hard, whatever you're playing is for you. And continuing on with that psychological scar idea I presented, I do think that old habits die hard, and so in a pressure situation, if you've been used to sort of slowing down during your practice for a particular section, not only will it be hard not to slow down, but then doing it at full speed with pressure on you might end up just feeling way faster than it actually is because there's just remembered anxiety from when you were practicing it that way. All right, so tip number 1 is to hyper-isolate. Essentially, what that means is pare everything down to exactly what is giving you trouble and then work only on that. Okay, so whether that's a shift, a string crossing, whatever it is, you figure out exactly the notes that are giving you trouble and work only on those notes. Okay, what I see a lot of people do is, let's say, for example, it's a shift. People will start maybe a bar and a half before, a bar before, just to kind of get the feel of the music, and they get going and they start playing, and then it comes to the shift, so things kind of slow down and they're very careful, and then let's say they accomplish the shift and then they just kind of crank the speed back up and keep playing through it. As an alternative to that, what I would do is practice the shift itself. So that's 2 notes. That's the note before you shift your hand and the note where you land in the new position. As an example, the shift that's giving me trouble in this scenario is from 4th finger on E in 2nd position to 4th finger on D. So that's where I'm going to hyper-isolate. I'm going to practice those 2 notes only, okay? Going slowly, working on the coordination between my 2 hands, making sure I leave early enough so that I arrive at the D on time. Once that's comfortable, I'll go ahead and add one more note before the shift, okay? So then I have 3 total notes I'm working on. That's comfortable, I add 2 notes before the shift, 3 notes before the shift, etc. And so what we're doing here essentially is just kind of working backwards. We start with the hard part, get that comfortable, and then slowly work backwards and splice that now comfortable shift back into the music. So essentially what you're doing here is you'll be spending the majority of your time working on the problem itself and fixing it, instead of practicing it in a way that creates this weird hesitation or psychological scarring where, no matter how comfortable you eventually get it, there's just that memory of having to slow down and think of it as a difficult thing. All right, tip number 2 is to play everything at the same tempo. And yes, I'm saying use a metronome. You're going to figure out essentially what is the speed I can play the hardest part of this passage comfortably. And then that becomes the tempo marking for the entire passage. When I offer this up to, students of mine, usually there's a little bit of, kickback because it's like, this is going to be so boring. I cannot imagine, I have one shift here that's a problem and you're telling me to play 3 bars at this glacial tempo. What I would say is that there is no limit to how much nuance and detail you can add, especially at a slow tempo. So what we're talking about here is articulation, growing notes into other notes, or whether they lead into the next note, whether it fades in the next note, basically creating this beautiful little terrain throughout the musical phrase that keeps it really interesting. This is your chance to work on all these little nuances that will bring your music to the next level. I gotta say also that this is the kind of work for me personally that really starts to get into that meditative zone where you just are seriously focused on the present and trying to accomplish the musical shape. And then because you're working at a slow tempo, there's not really stress from trying to fit it all in while the music's going by quickly, and you have the opportunity to hear what you're doing because it's moving slowly enough. So I would really encourage you to give this a try. I know it probably sounds like similar to pulling teeth to just, because of one shift or one string crossing, start playing a whole section of music super slow. But if you look at it the right way, it's a fascinating way of practicing, and it's really effective. There you have it. If this is something you think you might be doing in your practice, please go ahead, try my 2 tips, and let me know how it goes. I hope they help you. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel and like the video. Thanks so much.